Live from the heart of America, I'm Steve Gruber, your soldier of truth, the tip of the spear against socialists, here ready to fight for you in the foxhole of freedom. Remember to think, while it's still legal, this is the Steve Gruber Show, and here are the three big things you need to know right now. Number one, Mitch McConnell had another bad episode in front of TV cameras, locking up after a question, not being able to speak. It's time to go, Mitch. And by the way, take Joey with you. Enjoy the ice cream. Number two, there is no green transition going on. There's not. At least not in the countries that would matter like China and India. Now, the climate change thing means nothing over there, despite all the hysteria over here. And number three, Hurricane Idalia has gotten a lot of press this week as the mainstream media reported breathlessly that this was an historic and unprecedented storm. I'm sorry, I'm going to argue it was neither. Yeah, a pretty big hurricane. But then again, most of them are. I mean, they are hurricanes, after all. It was only historic because there isn't any record of one hitting quite where Idalia came on shore at Big Bend, but so what? Of the hundreds of communities on the coast of Florida, pretty sure there are a whole lot more that have never been hit by a hurricane either. The other claim is that this storm was unprecedented, also false. At least to me it is. I mean, sure, it hit this stretch of coast that's not had a hurricane since at least 1851. And so what? Fort Myers got hit last year for the first time in a century. Sometimes these storms hit new places and sometimes they hit old places. But guess what? Hurricanes were here long before Republicans could be blamed for it raining and getting windy. But that, of course, did not slow down or change the inevitable, which is the climate harlots screaming it's your fault, mine. For driving a car, using air conditioning, cooking on a gas stove, and of course cooking red meat for that matter. None of that has anything to do with storms. The worst decade for horrible hurricanes in America was the 1950s. And I'm pretty sure Camille, back in 1969, a Cat 5 monster, still rates as the most powerful and historic hurricane in Florida history. Then you have many more like Andrew, Hugo, Irma, Floyd, and, well, those are just ones I can remember off the top of my head. This one will soon be forgotten. Those will never be forgotten. Of course, there will always be Katrina. And if you didn't know, the deadliest hurricane in U.S. history had no name at all. It came in the year 1900, Galveston, Texas. Nobody actually knows how many people died in that monster storm, but somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 people killed. And the bodies were rotting in the streets after the storm surge finally receded. But like I said, the climate Nazis were screaming loudly and oh so predictably that somehow this medium-strength hurricane, I mean, it's a big storm, don't get me wrong, but it's medium in the world of hurricanes. That this is some sort of sign of doom? Come on. At last glance, Idalia had claimed 2 lives. 2. One in Florida, one in Georgia. Not exactly the hurricane apocalypse. And I'm not dismissing people that lost their homes or their businesses were flattened or their streets were flooded. I'm not dismissing that at all, but let's keep it in context, shall we? There's a lot of rain. A lot of people without power, but more people lost power in Michigan last week from a couple of tornadoes than did folks in Florida yesterday. Last time I looked, about 250,000 people were without power at the end of the day Wednesday in Florida. But look, that doesn't fit the narrative. So the White House, with a failing president, pushed the senile old man in front of the cameras to push the same unsupported claims of climate change in the desperate hope to gin up votes, of course. Joe Biden, not a bright man. And of course he tries to claim climate change is creating some type of unprecedented storms. But statistics don't support that claim. But it's not like the guy can read. You see him with a teleprompter, right? Wrestling that thing. Here he is.
As I walked out of my office a moment ago to begin to recover from the impacts of this storm, I let each governor I spoke with know if there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support of what they need. I don't think anybody can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore. Just look around. Historic floods, more intense droughts, extreme heat, significant wildfires have caused significant damage like we've never seen before, not only throughout the Hawaiian Islands in the United States, but in Canada and other parts of the world. We've never seen this much fire. And while we're dealing with this latest extreme weather event, I remain laser focused on recovering and rebuilding efforts in Maui. We were out there, and many of you were there as well. It's devastating what happened there. When I took office, I directed my team to raise our game in how we lead and coordinate our responses to natural disasters.
Yeah. But here's the problem, Joey. People are catching on, even those that once not only believed in man-made climate change, but spread the gospel to the world. Scientists once immersed in the fiction and the fraud are coming out of the climate fog and say, whoa, wait a second here. More and more climate scientists are telling the truth. We have always had huge storms, and to suggest otherwise is frankly stupid and dishonest, including people like Dr. Judith Curry, the former chair of atmospheric science at Georgia Tech. Here's what she had to say.
It's been characterized as a very simple issue, as if carbon dioxide emitted from fossil fuels is some sort of a control knob on the climate. Well, it just flat out isn't. Sure, humans are influencing the climate to some extent, but natural climate variability is far and away the dominant factor. And they're seizing on extreme weather events as motivating elimination of fossil fuels, which is fairly ludicrous because a warming climate doesn't necessarily, or there's no evidence that this is leading to worse extreme weather events. We've always had extreme weather.
Yeah, we've always had extreme weather. That's blasphemy, by the way, in the circles of climate Nazis. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds also hammers on the fanciful idea of climate change being your fault or mine, when the facts, well, simply don't support such a claim. Here's the congressman.
Well, first, I don't believe in man-made climate change. That's number one. Number two, even if you believe in climate change, quote unquote, what are the actual solutions? What the Democrats want us to do is to send money and treasure over to the Chinese so they can strip mine the planet, basically dump a lot of emissions into the atmosphere and give us solar panels and windmills. And even with these solar panels and windmills, it's not going to help the American people be able to survive if there are higher temperatures, because you need massive amounts of electricity to run air conditioning, to run refrigerators, so on and so forth. What people on the left who really dig into this climate change stuff really want for us to do is to unwind some of the very fabric of our economy. That doesn't make any sense. You need fossil fuels, you need energy production, and that still primarily comes from natural gas, fossil fuels, and what we should be doing is embracing nuclear power.
Yeah, embracing nuclear power. Boy, is he right. We need more nuclear power. I mean, if the French can figure it out. And you know what? If you don't want to put those nuclear power plants in places to get hit by hurricanes, well then, put a little farther north, a little farther inland. But let those lines run to Florida and Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama. I'll have more on this coming up. Big storm, yes. Sorry for the people that lost things, but let's not lose perspective, okay? We'll be back on The Steve Gruber Show.